Smoke.
Travis Roeder, college football analyst for SicEm365.com, and appears on this show as well. 365 Sports has been writing a series about Baylor featuring a couple of tight ends, and they've got two good ones in Sims and Dabney, among others. It also breaks down some of the commitments when he gets to watch them on film as well. Travis with Craig and David and Paul Catalina as well. Travis, thanks for your time. The series on the two tight ends, when you have two like that, not many do, why not feature them, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty rare. When you really think about it, Ben Sims, Drake Dabney. Drake Dabney's going to be a true junior. I think Ben Sims is either a fourth-year or fifth-year guy. They're two upperclassmen who are above average at basically everything you need college tight ends to do. They're good blockers. They're good at perimeter blockers. They can handle their own, blocking big defensive linemen. And then both of them bring a lot to the table in the pass game. And generally in college, you remember those Bryles tight ends were basically offensive tackle appendages who didn't, kind of rarely caught a ball every now and again. And most college teams tend to either use their tight ends as basically wide receivers or as extra O linemen. But Baylor not only has one guy who is able to do it all, but two that's able to do it at all. And so when you like you said, Smokey, when you got two that can do that, may as well feature it because that's pretty rare in today's college football.
Given the lack of experience at wide receiver, do you expect to see maybe more balls going the tight ends' ways, at least early in the season?
Oh, yeah, and I would say throughout the season, too. I think Baylor's going to kind of base out of that 12 personnel package, which all that means is one running back, two tight ends, and two wide receivers on the field. If I had to pick one person on the team that's most likely to lead the team in receptions, I think it's probably Ben Sims. So I think he's going to get a ton of balls his way. And when you look at most college football teams, you look at what Grimes has done. Most teams tend to have like 5 or 6 guys that get, at least 80% of the receptions over the course of the year. And I think both Ben Sims and Drake Dabney are going to be in that top kind of 6 guys for Baylor. And so that kind of leaves a couple, 3 wide receivers and then probably a running back who's going to fill that out. And like I said, that's pretty rare. Most colleges, they might not even have a tight end in the top 5 or 6 for total receptions. And I think Baylor's going to have 2 guys that do that. And a guy in Ben Sims who likely might lead the pack.
Travis, last year it was a bit of a struggle trying to get points on the board at times, and some of that can be credited to the opponents, but the defense had to keep them in some games, and they were able to sneak out enough points. Is this an offense you can see that's able to fire off points at will and not so much have to rely as much on their defense?
Yeah, I think when everyone's healthy, yes. I think there's some pretty key spots that I'm watching health-wise for Baylor this year. Obviously Shapen is at the forefront there. I feel okay about Kyron Drones or the new guy they took from Louisiana Tech, Luke Anthony, kind of coming in for spot starts or maybe having to play a half or so, but I don't want to see them having to play for significant portions of the season. And then there are kind of a few other spots. I think they're pretty thin at offensive tackle. I don't want to see Connor Galvin go down. Squirrel has to prove that he can play a full season healthy. Tate McWilliams hasn't played much, so we don't know how. One thing that made Abram Smith so freaking good was that he played injured half the year, but you could barely tell. He was just a warrior. And I think that's really a valuable asset in a running back. So we'll see if Baylor's running back can do that. And I say all that because I think when everyone's healthy, this is pretty clearly like a top 20 national offense that's very much able to hold their own. I think they're going to be a very explosive unit and probably be one of the 5 or 6 best teams in the nation running the ball. But the question is, okay, Blake Shapen's got an ankle sprain. Squirrel's got his knee banged up a little bit, and Tay isn't feeling 100%. Like, are they still going to be as explosive when some of their main pieces aren't 100%? Because that's football, man. You're not going to get through a whole season 100%. So that's kind of what I'm most curious to see how they do during the grind of the season.
While you were saying that, I thought about teams in college football historically, and even going back a few years, that consistently, no matter who the quarterback was or who the offensive line was or the running backs, although some had All-Americans and Heisman Trophy winners, they ran the football. That's what they do.
Right.
Wisconsin's one that I think about. Back in the day, USC. Back in the day, obviously, Nebraska, when they used to go from the I formation, and others. Is not trying to compare Baylor to that, but is that what they're kind of becoming?
Yeah, I think the wide zone scheme is very beneficial for that. I don't think they have anybody that can replace Squirrel this year because I've kind of got out on the limb saying that, as long as he's healthy, I think Squirrel's probably about to put up one of the greatest running back seasons that Baylor's ever seen. I just think he's that good, that talented. But when you look at the guys who are backing him up, Tay McWilliams, you got Josh Fleek. They've got a couple of true freshmen who are supposed to be pretty good. Jordan Jenkins out of Lindale. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's the hope. It's kind of plug and play. Not that you don't need great athletes, and most of those guys are great athletes. But yeah, that's definitely the hope because it's pretty rare to go through a season with both of your top running backs getting a ton of carries and not missing some time. It's just such a physical and tough position to play. And the offensive line is good enough. And as I wrote about in the series about the tight ends, I think a lot of us remember last year that those jet sweeps didn't always work. We saw Monterey Baldwin take that one to the house against Ole Miss. And the reason those plays are so difficult is because blocking on the edge is just a really tough proposition for tight ends and wide receivers. You have to remember as a fan, the wide receiver or the tight end is trying to block a defensive back, and the defensive back can see where the ball is, and the blocker cannot. And they're operating in a lot of space. It's just really tough. And so I think Baylor's going to kind of feature those tight ends, feature some more good blocking wide receivers, and obviously an offensive line, which brings back 4 out of their 5 guys from last year, and hope, okay, we can probably survive some injuries and still be able to run the ball very well.
Travis, I know the Squirrel and Tay, after those two, who do you expect to be the one that could come in and change it up? Do you expect it to be maybe Josh Fleeks?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's really tough to answer because Squirrel and Tay got basically all the carries with the first team offensive line in the spring game. And because Baylor is so deep on that second team defensive line, I mean, think about it. The second team defensive line was going against, second team O-line was either going against Apu Ika at nose tackle or Jackson Player. Like there was no rest for the weary there. So those backup running backs, guys like Josh Fleek, Jordan Jenkins, they were not receiving nearly as good of blocking going behind that second team O-line as Squirrel and Tay were behind the first team O-line. So that did make the evaluation a little bit tough. I think Fleeks obviously has all the athletic potential. His problem has always been kind of he kind of gets paralyzed in the open field trying to make too many moves where he needs to kind of just plant his foot and get upfield. Jordan Jenkins, I'm sure y'all knew him with how much y'all love East Texas high school football. That dude is just a freak athletically, but I think he just needs to kind of put it all together as far as how to play the position, how to make it work within the scheme. And Richard Reese, the tiny true freshman out of Belleville, I believe, is at high school. I think he's ready to roll. And especially if Squirrel gets hurt, I think he's going to kind of probably replace Squirrel's carries. But yeah, I mean, I think those are the 3 guys that come to mind the most: Fleeks, Richard Reese, and Jordan Jenkins. And then they've got Kyan Roberts-Day, who showed up at 275 pounds. And so I think he probably needs to lose about 30 pounds before he seriously is looking at playing running back. I know Squirrel told us today that he's basically just eating salads. So hopefully he'll be able to get there.
Wait a minute. Who showed up at the kid from Missouri?
Yeah, Kyan Roberts-Day. Yeah, he's 6'4", 275.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Nothing but eating salads. Oh my Lord.
Yeah. Squirrel told us that he got up in front of the team and introduced himself, and Squirrel didn't know who he was. And he said that Kyan said, I'm Kyan Roberts-Day. I'm a running back. And Squirrel said he was just like, what? He's a what?
Yeah, he's a big man, no question about it. Wherever he decides to play, if it's going to be running back, which is what's been reported, then my God, it'll be interesting to watch that. Travis, one more thing. You are very bullish on them as far as you think this team will be better on offense, despite losing the weapons offensively as far as the weapons. You feel good about that, don't you? You will kind of put down the stamp on that.
Yeah, I mean, I feel very confident, kind of like what I was saying earlier, that when this team is healthy, or at least, sustains the normal amount of injuries for the year, I think you can expect the running backs to miss a game or two between them. Maybe expect Shapen to miss a game or two. You'd probably expect a guy on the offensive line to miss a significant time. But, as long as they kind of sustain a normal amount of injuries throughout the year, I feel very confident in this offense being better than last year. And it's really for one main reason. And that is, as we've probably talked about on this show before, Jeff Grimes last year went all in on just installing very few plays. And they just mastered those very few plays. When you actually go back and, as I've been doing the past few days, watching some BYU tape from when he had Zach Wilson at quarterback, you can just see that the sheer number of plays that they were running, it's just a lot more. There's a lot more variety in the offense, and I think that's why they decided to go with Shapen. Not only why they decided to go with him, but why they decided to go with him and name him the starter so early. Is that so that way all summer that they can kind of craft the offense around him, install those new plays in fall ball. And the offense is just going to be, a lot more installed, and they're going to have a lot more options. Because I think that's what we saw last year, especially in the second half of games and the second half of the season. It kind of felt like teams had the playbook on what Baylor was going to do a little bit. And so I think that variety is going to help them out a lot this year.
Travis, thanks for your time. Travis Roeder, again, has written a series